So hello and welcome to the Q&A with Maya, who's on the screen there now with me. And so I'm Senator Lynn Ruane, and I'm from Dublin in Ireland, and I'm absolutely honoured to be here today with Maya and George and Leah. George made me cry many times over the weekend. George, I was in loads of tears. You touched my heart, you and Leah. And really inspired me. How are you doing now, George and Leah? You're in your new trailer, is that right?
Yeah.
George,
I'm doing good.
you're doing good.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And did you enjoy
Yeah.
the documentary? You're a big film star in Ireland.
Yeah.
How am I going to get your autograph? When did you move? When did you and Leah move into the trailer, George?
About
Almost 2 months.
about 2 months.
And you're comfortable and happy
2
there?
months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to get a house.
Trying to get a house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Close by or
Yeah.
yeah. But you're comfortable in the trailer for now. Trailers are nice to live in sometimes, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it move, or are you in the same spot? Are you on a site, or are you traveling in the trailer, or is it?
Right. I got my trailer by my nephews.
Very good. So they gave you the trailer.
No, we got it in Lethbridge.
Yeah, George
Ah,
bought the trailer.
Oh, amazing. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done. So if I come and visit, can I stay in the trailer?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. It's really good to see you, George and Leah.
Yeah.
You've had a big impact on me in the movie. So I might go back and ask Maya a few questions so the audience can learn a bit about the movie. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you have any questions for Leah?
Yeah, just to say hello. Stick Leah onto me. Hiya, Leah. How are you?
Hold on. Can you see her?
I can. It's
Actually, Leah, can you move to the couch? Can't. Here, we're moving so you can see her.
Hi, Leah.
There we go.
Hello.
Hi. Did you enjoy?
Hello.
Did you enjoy making the documentary?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. How did it feel seeing yourself on the screen? Was it?
Well, it made me feel good. But it was, Shauna. That was my sister, and
Yeah.
I was really close to her, and
Yeah.
I'm glad I was on there, but I'm still hurt because I just lost my brother, and his hurt. His name was Cameron Tallow, and I was really close to him too. But I'm grateful that George got us a home. It's good to stay in here. But I'm hurt about all these. But I'm glad and I lost another cousin, the Edwin Badman, and he was on there too. And I'm trying my best to be strong, but it's gonna take me a while because I'm really grieving. And I'm grateful my cousin, well, she's my cousin, but her sister, she's there to comfort me, and they understand. People get mad, they say, why is she around me? And then they say, well, she's comforting me. And George's sister, Verna, was even saying that too, why she was around in our trailer down at RV park. And I said, no, she's just here with me. She's comforting me because she knows I'm grieving. And after that, she understood. But other than that, I feel good. Me and George, we're together in my, well, she's my cousin, but I take her sister Jennifer, girlfriend, our cutter or blood.
I think listening to you, I admire your strength. None of us should have to experience so much death and so much trauma in such a short space of time.
Yeah.
And of course you're going to be upset, and I think the fact that you have support and you're letting that support in, and you and George can mind each other and just be kind to yourself, because finding recovery or becoming drug free, it's not a straight line. We keep going around and around, and every time we learn something new, and each and every time we get stronger and stronger. And I think you're amazing, and I just thank you thank you for, I suppose, telling your story, because even though your family members couldn't have been saved, there's lots of people that will benefit from you telling your story. And I think that that's really big. And I really thank you for your time.
Oh yeah, and another thing I'm happy about, my baby, his name is Cameron Thomas Jr. Crazy Bull. I named him after my late brother. He was a cross-country runner. Maya knows him, she ran with him, but he passed on years ago. And I named my baby after him, and he's gonna be 18 on Sunday, so I'm really happy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's big. A man.
Man.
That's brilliant. Happy birthday,
but he's like his uncle. And well, his late father, Alden Heimbo, he was a baseball, he was into sports, and my boy is into running and sports, and he's really good into basketball.
Do you think we can get George out running?
I don't think so. George will just be Lynn, baby.
Do you guys have anything else you want to say?
Let's see. Well, it's just like, like we lost like people on those drugs, I don't know, they're called cider down. But me, like I have a slight addiction to solvents and alcohol. Well, yeah, alcohol. Like I never used to really, but I'm the type, I don't like to hang around with people like me and George and Jennifer. I like to be like this, like party like that. I don't like crowds, like hanging out. And like I'm really close to my mom. I'm her baby girl, Bernadine Mountain Horse, and she's sick. That's Maya's cousin, as her mom's Esther's cousin, but she's sick, and that's the thing that I'm hurt, because she goes to dialysis, and she raised me, and since I was a baby, well, she's not my biological, but I take her because she took me out as a baby, and like I still like think about her every day, because she I don't know what they're saying. Esther was talking to her that one day we seen her. We went to go up to Esther's because my mom needs gas money. So I told her to go up to Esther's, she'll help you. She said, yeah. So we went up there. My mom was talking about her hair. She's losing her hair, and she goes to dialysis in Lethbridge. When is it? Every
3 days a week.
3 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like I pray for my mom. Like she's always been there for me. And like up to like she spoiled me, like everything I want, like everything. She got everything, her and my late daddy, but I call my papa. And that's why Georgie always gets mad at me. Oh, no, I got you some candy because I feel like eating candy.
Oh, that's very kind. Isn't it? That's very cute.
Yeah. All right. You guys want to say bye and hello, I guess, to everyone in Ireland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice talking to you again.
Do you want to say bye in Blackfoot?
Okay. How much to you?
Beautiful.
All right. I'll step outside and finish out here. I'll be right back, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Maya.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Okay. Can you still hear me okay out here?
I can. So
Okay.
how did it feel going back to visit them in their trailer after just kind of watching the journey for the last while and so intimately having to follow that journey as a filmmaker?
Oh, I feel really good that they have a roof over their heads, and it's been something they've been working for since I first met them. I guess it's been 6 years, maybe. Yeah, 6 years ago. I'm just gonna hop in the car. It'll be easier to sit in the car. George actually was able to purchase the trailer with settlement money from his experience in residential school. So it's good to see that the money has gone to providing a roof over their heads, and they seem to be in a good place, and I'm just really happy to see them.
And it's good to see, like, because when people watch the documentary as part of the FLA, they'll see the level of trauma that has been experienced across many generations, and how that then manifests itself in the likes of George and other people self-medicating and trying to manage life. So I think it's a real sign of where their own mindset is, that he bought a trailer, you know, he's the right decisions, he's making the right decisions to try and create some safety and security around him and Leah. And I think that that's all we can do sometimes, even when we're experiencing trauma, or even if we're still caught in addiction, to try and create that foundation of safety. And I hope that home gives that to Leah and George. I have to say, it was difficult watching the documentary over the weekend. So I worked in addiction for 20 years, and I'd be from a community that experiences a lot of trauma, a lot of death at a very young age. And when I watched it, I felt quite close, and I'm so happy that George and Leah was there. I kind of felt a connection to the people in the documentary. And I watched it in the weekend after our own safe injecting site was rejected by the High Court, something I've worked on for such a long time. And then at the end of the documentary, you mentioned that the safe injecting facility was now gone. What kind of impact does that have now on the community?
Oh, it's been devastating. We've had, sorry, I haven't talked about the film in a little while. We've had the highest number of overdose deaths ever in the last year since they closed the site. And it's, you know, it's twofold. Like, one is because of the pandemic, things are just harder for people. But secondly, because the supervised consumption site was closed, people are now using alone during a pandemic, and obviously dying from drug poisoning or overdose. So it's been a really hard year, especially for my mom, who's, you know, on the front lines and doing all of this important work, and kind of fighting against a very conservative government that doesn't see the value or necessity in harm reduction. And, you know, that ultimately speaks to their own feelings towards our people and drug users in general, and that they're not human beings, or we're not human beings worthy of the support that harm reduction services provide.
Yeah, no, it was, I have to say, it was hard to digest at the end when I seen that they had closed it. You know, harm reduction has been what I've advocated for my entire life. And I think sometimes governments or policymakers, they can impose their own kind of morality on people, as if abstinence is the only way that people can live a good life. And ultimately, you can't live a good life if you're not alive. So harm reduction is at the heart of I suppose, of being able to keep people alive until they decide what they want to do. And that's not always abstinence, you know. In terms of the future for the services there where you are, which you so amazingly covered throughout the whole documentary, it really gives an insight to the amount of work that is happening and the amount of passion that's there. Do you think in the future there will be a reopening of some of those services, or a way forward? Is there many advocacy groups there supporting the work of your mum and the doctor? I forget the woman's name, the doctor who her mannerisms were amazing with the patients. Her name's gone out of my head. Is there support there to try and push against conservative kind of policy making? Or
Yeah. Well, my mom, the doctor, Esther Tailfeathers.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was thinking of the other woman then with her daughter there for a minute.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you know, she works for Alberta Health Services, the provincial healthcare provider. She's the medical lead for Indigenous health in the province, and so she does so much work behind the scenes on an advocacy level, just trying to lobby and push for change. But we have a very conservative government in the province of Alberta, and that affects, you know, so many things. But in terms of the work that's happening on the reserve, it's still very active. They're still pushing for change. The detox that you see at the end of the film, it's still very active. It was kind of hard with the pandemic because they had to limit the number of people that came in and those kinds of things, but it's growing. They just received some long-term funding for at least a few years, which is a really big deal. And they've built kind of like an aftercare facility. So when people go to the detox, then they go to treatment, they can come back to the detox and live in kind of like an aftercare situation. And the community is also really moving forward with building the supportive housing for people living with addictions and people who are coming out of treatment. I mean, it costs a lot of money, but we've had some major land claim settlements. Like our tribe has had some major land claim settlements with the federal government, which means that there's money coming in, and our tribal leadership has been really responsible about, considering where that money is going to go, and a big portion of it is going to go towards housing, and in particular supportive housing for people like George and Leah, and people who go through the detox that you see at the bringing home the spirit detox.
So explain that to me then, Maya. So you have the individual settlements for someone like George, who has had like an individual claim in terms of what happened to him in terms of the residential schools, and Ireland is going through its own process the last so many years in relation to, I suppose, the impact that that residential institutions, and we've had the mother and baby homes and all of that. So George would have received an individual settlement in terms of that, but what can you explain to me a little bit more then what a land settlement is, and who makes those decisions then? Is it a democratic process that makes those decisions, or explain that to me, because that would be new.
It goes through the federal court system in Canada. So so the land claims are because of essentially like historical theft of our land. So one is that the major claim is that when our reserve land was designated back in the late 1800s, we were supposed to include, there's supposed to be a big chunk of land that was supposed to be included in our reserve lands, but that land was expropriated by settlers here, and the federal government participated in that expropriation. So essentially our reserve lands were stolen. And that's not even just like all of our traditional territory, but our reserve lands were stolen. And so our tribe has been in the courts for the last 45 years, trying to receive some sort of settlement, some sort of restitution for the fact that this reserve land was taken knowingly by the federal government and settlers here. And so it's now been settled, and we're going to receive essentially money from the federal government as a settlement. And then that money goes into our collective tribal ownership, and our tribal leadership decides, along with our members, where the money is going to go. So it'll go into things like building more infrastructure. Like we don't really have playgrounds on the reserve that are in good shape, except for at the schools. We don't have a lot of, it's mostly dirt roads, and there's a lot of people living in substandard, unsafe, overcrowded housing. There's not a lot of businesses or things like that. So they want to use this major settlement money towards just building community infrastructure, because it's like, you see in the film, you go across the street to Cardston, or you go to Lethbridge, and those are municipalities that have all of the things that so many of us take for granted. And then you cross the highway, and there's houses here that are boarded up, and people don't have the basic necessities that are human rights. And so and that's the case on every reserve, I would say, in Canada.
Okay. So what the kind of reparation that comes for that then will come back into investing, I suppose, in the fallout of how the tribe was treated and oppressed, and probably potential assimilation and everything, and the residential stuff. But then within the tribe, then is there a real togetherness of what needs to happen, or would there be any stigma? But like, you know, when someone has experienced trauma, or does end up in homelessness, or does end up in addiction, is there still a level of stigmatizing within your own community, or is there kind of a general understanding? Or
Yeah, there absolutely is still the stigma. I mean, it's been really interesting to share the film with the community, because I feel like it's starting to change attitudes and understandings. I mean, even myself on my journey in making this film, I came to understand things very differently in spending time with people like George and Leah and Lori and Shay and Mariah. And just understanding the necessity of harm reduction. So it's been interesting to share the film with the community and have conversations with people where they kind of begin to understand why it's so important. But there's still a lot of like deeply rooted attitudes that, you know, abstinence, 12-step programs, that is the only way we can go forward. And people who use drugs and alcohol are, you know, bad people, and they need to just, you know, sort their lives out and make that change themselves, and it's an easy decision to make, sort of thing. So it's still a challenge, and I think, you know, those attitudes are pervasive everywhere, not just on the reserve.
yeah, no, completely. And I do think that the documentary can serve as you know, an educational tool to open people's minds. And I mean, they've lived the same life in the same place, so they know that things have been difficult, and then we all just find different ways to cope with that, I suppose. And I think the documentary does such a good job at showing that. I suppose my last question would be is that you know, do you think the policy makers and those who invest in Alberta will sit down and watch the film, or have you
I
tried?
hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. We are building an impact campaign. It's impact producing is totally new to me, but we've thankfully acquired some funds to build an impact campaign, and part of that impact campaign is about strategizing on how to get this film in front of the eyes of policy makers and people who can help shape policy, and you know, and people who have some influence over the lives of Indigenous people in this province and in this country. So yeah, we'll see where that takes us. It's going to be a lot of work, but thankfully we have some wonderful experienced folks helping us out in building our campaign.
Brilliant. Well done, Maya. I can't wait for everybody to see it. It's obviously sad to watch, but extremely informative and helpful, I think, for even us here in Ireland, because we are having those same conversations, those same struggles for services, for understanding, for empathy. And I think the documentary that you made translates across, you know, across the sea, really. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was an honor speaking with you. And yeah, I'm so glad George and Leah were able to
participate. So am I. Thank you.
Okay, take care. It was lovely to meet you. Bye.